I'm Bernina expert Amanda Murphy, and welcome to month 2 of the Fast Forward Quilt Along on Bernina's blog, WeAllSew.com. This month, I'll show you how to take the blocks that you made the previous month and assemble them to create both the quilt top and the quilt backing. Some of you may have noticed there's a bit of an optical illusion with this quilt, and some of the flying geese are actually made from half-square triangles. Let's take all our blocks and get started. The first thing we'll do is assemble all our blocks into 6 different rows. Now, it may look like the triangles are placed randomly, but actually, I've given you a PDF with very specific instructions for each row. They aren't hard, but they're all different. When piecing the rows together, I like to pin them really well with 2 pins at each intersection, one on one side of the intersection and one on the other, like you see here. Next, let's set up the machine. I use the Bernina 475 Quilters Edition, and normally I piece with stitch 1303. It has a nice even tension and a small stitch length. But when I'm piecing rows, I often also use stitch 1301, and the difference with this stitch is that it has a slightly longer stitch length, which I'm changing here. So I have a 2.2 stitch length that I piece the rows with, but also it will do little stitches at the beginning and the end of the stitching if you use your quick reverse button, and that's really nice to secure each row. I also lowered the presser foot pressure to help me deal with the bulkier intersections. This was a dial located on the side of the 475, but it might also be on your screen for some Bernina models. So it's time to piece the rows together. I move the pin heads out of the way so that they don't go under the foot. And then I take the pin out as I approach it. I sew a little more, and right before I'm going to sew over that second pin, I take it out. And then I continue on. I usually do piece fairly fast, but when I come to the pins, I slow down. So the first pin comes out and then the second. You'll note that I'm holding a stiletto. This is my seam ripper stiletto tool for brewer sewing, and I use it all the time. It helps me control the fabric as it feeds under the foot of the machine. Take out the first pin and then the second pin. So I really do slow down and pay attention to the intersections, making sure I'm not cutting off corners of flying geese, and making sure that I maintain that 1/4 inch seam allowance. You join the rows together, and then you have a quilt top. I can't wait to start showing you how I quilted this next month. Next, it's time to move on and piece the backing. So I customize my backing using the alphabet feature on the Bernina 475. And to do this, I first stabilize my fabric by applying OESD fusible woven with my Laurastar Smart U. I love the dry steam heat. If you have a wetter iron that doesn't get this hot, I would recommend not using steam when you apply it, but it does work with the Laurastar. So here I've gone ahead and sewn out my signature onto a scrap piece of fabric so I can figure out how long it is. And I recommend you do that too, because depending on the length of your name or your message, it's going to be a different length, and you want this stitching to show in the center of your quilt top, or towards the center of your quilt top. You don't want it to be cut off in the quilting process. So I've gone ahead and marked a horizontal line to help me when I sew, and I've also marked the beginning point based upon the length of my stitching. And now I'm going to stitch my signature. If this quilt is going to be a gift, this is a great place to add the recipient's information as well as your name as the maker. I use contrasting thread, and actually I found some 28 weight thread that I used for this task, just so it would show a little bit more, and I used Orfil 28 weight. And here is the piece once it's completed. It looks fabulous, especially because I've stabilized that fabric before doing the stitches. You'll go ahead and finish piecing the backing with the half square triangles that you made while you were making the flying geese. And I'll meet you back here next month on WeAllSew to show you how I quilted Fast Forward. I hope you're enjoying the quilt along.